And there was again a battle on Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jaareoregim, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, the brother of David, slew him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David, and by the hand of his servants. Rastafari. Greetings, giving thanks. Ross reports. The headline: we're still an unscripted source of truth, supporting the struggle for international justice. And I wanted to cover what TED Talks was talking about yesterday. A man on there was talking about David and Goliath, how we have a misconception about the story altogether. So basically his basis for this was that David was not actually the underdog. At the end of it, he said we shouldn't look at it as the underdog versus the champ. We should more look at it like Tesla versus BMW. The first thing he said was that the sling that David used has the same stopping power as a 45mm. I'll let you make the decision of whether a sling has the same stopping power as a 45mm. He then said that Goliath had a tumor. He was like Andre the Giant. He had some kind of a disease, and he kept growing and growing, which would have offset his balance, so it would have been easy to take him out. He said that Goliath said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with staves?" Well, he used the word sticks, and the Bible says staves. So I guess there's a misconception about whether David had 1 stick or 2 sticks. I mean, this is irrelevant. This is just, I was just blown. Let's talk about the real story of David versus Goliath. Goliath was the champion of the Philistines. He was a gigantic man, which in the Bible it speaks about the children of Israel having great fear for this man. He was also a man of war from his youth, whereas David was still a youth. It speaks about David having a ruddy look in his youth and having looked fair. This is not fair complexion. This doesn't mean that he had red hair. Fair simply means he was humble. He was a humble servant of the Lord. And if you looked upon him, you would have seen that in him. You would have trusted David. And yet, David knew, although the men of Israel feared Goliath, and even the king attempted to persuade David out of going to fight against Goliath, because he thought David didn't have a chance. David did the duty because he had that faith that the Lord was going to be with him. He used the example of pulling the lamb out of the lion. So he was assured that the Lord was by his side. And he went and met Goliath. He did not bring a sword. It said that Goliath had a sword, he had a shield, and yet David just brought this sling, and he defeated Goliath. So the real lesson to be learned here is that with Jah by our side, we can do anything. In 2 Samuel, that I was reading from, Jonathan was a servant of David, and Jonathan had also killed 2 of the warriors of the Philistines, one of which carried a tool, a weapon like a weaver's beam, something they had not seen before. The other one had 6 toes, 6 fingers, and was a giant, just as Goliath. I believe they were sons of Goliath. Just the emphasis on this New Age weaponry with the weaver's beam, and the fact that David had the sling and that Jonathan perhaps didn't have the same equipment, advanced weaponry, that tells you. The lesson is that we can defeat the enemy, even though the enemy possesses atomic weapons, even though the enemy possesses drones, even though the enemy possesses psychological warfare and propaganda through the content that we see all the time, everywhere, that's filtered into our brain. We can still defeat Satan.